Ace Bailey is a contender to go number 1 in the 2025 NBA Draft. This is Floor and Ceiling, let's break him down. A minor hip injury has kept Ace Bailey from making his college debut so far, but the pitch on the Rutgers freshman is that he's a wing listed at 6'10", who shows flashes of dribbling, passing, and most of all, shooting. Bailey is a definite bucket getter with a jumper that very few defenders can actually affect. I've heard Ace be compared to recent prospects like Brandon Miller or Jabari Smith because of that, and while I don't think Miller is too far away, I think Bailey is more eccentric than him, if you will. He's more athletic than Jabari, and perhaps more unpredictable than both, likely with a wider range of outcomes. Ace's shot making has to be where we start because this is his most dangerous and often used weapon. Bailey is highly comfortable, maybe too much so, pulling up off the bounce, especially in the mid-range. The Rutgers freshman takes some highly difficult shots, which can be ill-advised at times even if they go in. Still, Bailey can make those difficult pull-ups, his mechanics are not textbook, and his lower body can flail around, but I'm not sure that matters too much for Ace. His high release point, shooting versatility, and touch look really good. Bailey does an excellent job at scoring his shoulders to the rim, even from tough angles. And while body control is usually something that we associate with finishing, I think it applies to the 18-year-old's pull-up. Part of this is because he's not very good at playing against contact, but more on that later. For now though, it's tough for defenders to contest Ace's shot. He's twitchy off the dribble, although not particularly elastic, and his fluidity shooting with that high release point at his height is just about unblockable. Ace has gotten pretty good at playing with intention and aggression, but he can't use strength just yet. This extends out to 3, where I think he'll be able to shoot from NBA range, although his shot selection might drive coaches wild at first. It's worth touching on Bailey's space creation process because he honestly doesn't care too much if a defender is in his face. Ace's dribble moves are more for rhythm than space creation maybe, but that's kind of irrelevant with everything that we touched on before. Still, he's not very adept at separating from his defender off the bounce unless you consider shooting over the top of them to be that. Bailey's shot selection is a bit of a double-edged sword. He's a tough shot maker no matter what, but his misses often look really ugly because of the jumpers that he takes are so strenuous. Ace's handle is okay, but upon closer inspection, it kinda lacks wiggle. More than anything though, strength is the bigger issue since he can't play through contact. When a defender meets Bailey with his body, the Rutgers freshman can't really continue off the dribble, and that often leads to his improvable shot diet. The Rutgers wing's three-point shooting broadly suffers or succeeds for the same reasons, although the difference in range can lead to some worse-looking misses. Bailey will take high-difficulty pull-ups early in the offense without anyone else getting a touch, or all the same, he'll shoot a wild shot from downtown with defenders draped all over him. Often, Ace tries to get into his shot without having shaken his defender first. This can sometimes work for him, but it's not overly efficient. So that is actually why I really like Bailey as a play finisher right now. From 3, that means catching and shooting. We saw some of this during Rutgers preseason. Ace was lighting it up from deep, moving into shots, and converting in a variety of ways. Right now, and later, I see Bailey drilling threes, spotting up, off movement in the half court, as well as on inbound plays, on pick and pops, trailing in transition, and etc. Having all of those choices is really appealing with his size and skill set, and I also really appreciate that he's a shameless shooter. Sure, the diet can border on inexcusable at times, at least in high school, but Ace is one of those guys who can miss, keep going, and come up with an important shot no matter what. If Bailey's shot falls, then the first-year Rutgers prospect will have legit shooting gravity, and from there, as we'll see later, he can make decisions putting the ball on the floor. Getting into what Ace does in the paint, I think some of the same trends exist, namely the aversion or plain inability to play with or through contact. At this juncture, I consider driving and finishing to be Bailey's swing skills. Some of these clips are older, but in general, Ace's handle gets cut off versus physicality, which is problematic when he tries to drive. The issues with his ball handling become more obvious when he has to shake a defender east to west rather than attack north to south. When Bailey plays in traffic, he's still sloppy, and his body control and balance can suffer against physicality. That said though, there are flashes worth buying into. Ace can handle a bit, he has creativity and touch as a scorer, and there's definite upside for him as a slasher. His next step is adjusting his shooting profile towards being more aggressive at the rim. Bailey settles for pull-ups too often for my liking, even when I think the lane is or should be available for him. Once the Rutgers freshman makes his college debut, I'm curious to track Ace's attempts and makes at the basket. I think that will be pretty telling, even if just for his short-term future. Right now, Bailey is probably at his best attacking in transition. There's grab-and-go potential with how he can push off an opponent miss, and Ace's length, athleticism, and creativity are for sure factors here. The Scarlet Knight's playmaker can start and finish breaks, although I prefer him doing the latter, filling lanes, and catching lobs and such. The physicality and handle, like in the other areas of Bailey's game, need to improve, so his reads here can still be kinda clunky, but I feel like that doesn't really come up if Bailey is, like I've been saying, finishing the play rather than initiating or setting others up. I feel like Ace kinda had a reputation as a point forward coming out of high school, but to be honest, I consider that to be pretty overstated. Bailey has some playmaking instincts, but right now, also a lot of limitations. Those concern his handle, his strength, and his ability to get to his spots. It's way too early in my opinion to consider Ace a dribble, pass, shoot prospect. I think there's flashes, and he's demonstrated enough to make one believe that he can get there, but really he's only proven the last area. Bailey sees the floor to an extent, and he gets creative with his deliveries, zipping live dribble passes, and finding the open man with one hand. All of that bodes well, and I will say that his quick processing does encourage me. All of this is admittedly sporadic, but he's shown glimpses making reads versus two on the ball, executing hit-aheads in transition, or delivering quick drop-offs and touch passes on the interior. These are more so connective passes rather than lead flashes, but I think that's what Bailey needs for his future. By and large, I consider Ace's facilitating to be constrained right now by what we've mentioned in terms of separating from his defender due to handle and strength issues. Bailey's accuracy needs to be cleaner as well, considering the risky passes that he tries. Ace can be careless, and he needs to do a better job reading the help. He can make those quick reads that I touched on, but if he takes more touches on the ball, he also telegraphs his intentions too often. I think dealing with defenders at the nail will be a big learning curve for Ace in the NBA, maybe even now in college, since Bailey already dribbles or passes too often into a second man. Overall, Bailey isn't secure enough as a ball handler or playmaker, so like I've been saying, I prefer Ace starting off the ball and finishing plays. That can mean spotting up, as we saw earlier, but also making decisions off the catch and attacking closeouts. He'll be able to do this if the three goes in, which I expect that it will. Bailey also has real leverage as a cutter, even if he's more so known for his tough shot making. Moving towards the basket off the ball takes away the limitations with his handle, but it still makes the most out of Ace's pop, size, and general scoring instincts. Going forward, I want to see Bailey also pitch in as a rebounder to extend possessions. I'm not sure what level he does that at right now, but he should be contributing there. Ace Bailey's game against St. John's showed how he can use his length to make some plays around the ball. I'm not sure Ace is super long relative to his height, but he's twitchy and his wingspan, reported around 7 feet, is enough to be impactful. When he's engaged, Bailey can be annoying on his closeouts and contests. Plus, he also has greater margin for recovery when he slips up or gambles. This is very useful since Ace has a tendency to do the latter in the passing lanes. As we've seen on the other side of the ball, Bailey is tall and springy, but I don't consider him instinctual protecting the rim at all. In theory, he should add way more, but in practice, he's ineffective and too often a non-factor. Bailey really lacks strength. He doesn't assert himself at the basket, often reacting late or not at all. Going forward, I'll at least want to see Ace make multiple efforts and lock in on this end. His profile is appealing from an athleticism and dimension standpoint, but at this moment, I'm not sure that he's even making the right reads enough of the time. Of course, there's upside, so it's worth investing in Bailey and coaching him hard. I expect that to happen in the NBA. Clearly, Ace can play above the rim. However, I'm very hesitant right now to gauge any switchability or even positional optionality. In fact, his defensive motor doesn't appear that often, which stands out in this draft class. He's surrounded by other top prospects like Cooper Flagg or VJ Edgecombe, so Ace's physicality and effort need to be there more often.